My name is Edwin Van Riesen, and on behalf of Barcodes Group and Honeywell, I'd like to thank you for attending our webinar today on addressing modern business challenges with wearables. We know your time is precious, and we hope you gain some valuable insights into the solution that we'll be going over. We do have a Q&A feature available on this webinar, so please feel free to send us any questions, and we will address them towards the end of the webinar. Also, a copy of the recording will be sent to you over the next 2 days by email. At this point, I'd like to turn it over to Glenn Aspens, Global Offering Manager for Honeywell.
Well, thank you very much, Edwin, and hello, everyone. So yeah, appreciate your time today and look forward to spending the time going over what I think will be some fairly compelling elements that would affect your business quite directly. Just by way of brief introduction, my name is Glenn Aspens. I'm the offering manager for Honeywell for our wearable solution sets, or dedicated wearables. I've been in the industry for about 25 years now in a variety of roles, initially with the barcode consumables, in the technical side of that, in the product management side of that, then product management for thermal printing and scanning, and most recently for our mobility and our dedicated wearable offerings. So I've been in the industry for quite a while. So today we're going to talk about a number of the key elements that surround business challenges that most companies are facing today. We'll talk a little bit about the key market segments where people are likely to have an interest in these type of solutions to address the challenges. We're going to talk about some of the wearable solutions available today, talk a little bit about how the Barcodes Group can help integrate and solve those problems, and then we'll wrap it up with Q&A and closing remarks. So a lot to cover today, and hopefully it'll make this interesting and well worth your time. So let's start out by talking about some of the key challenges that most businesses are facing today. So some of the key stats. When we look at the warehouse in DC, which is one of the major markets where we see wearables being a compelling solution set or part of the mix around ways to solve these problems, noteworthy that the estimate from Interact Analysis is that there are about 13 million warehouse sector employees by 2025, which is a lot of people. The next key stat that we look at, that the people that are actually operating these warehouses, almost 3/4 of them are saying that they can't find enough people to fill those positions, whether they're the people that are actually moving boxes in the warehouse or whether they're the people that are supervisors and managers for the facilities. Now, that's not at all surprising. If you look at the stats coming from the US Labor Department, they note that supply chain supply of workers versus demand for workers, there's a gap of about 5.5 million people, which means, again, these 3/4 of all operators saying that they're having this problem getting enough people to do the jobs. None of that's surprising. So there are a lot of theories as to why we're seeing this gap in the workforce, but the theories don't at all change the conditions on the ground, which is there's a problem that people are not finding enough people to fill the traditional roles in the traditional way that these jobs were done. And these companies are compelled to find a new way to solve the problem. It's simply not tenable to keep going about things the way that they've been doing it. We need to find better ways, more efficient ways, more productive ways to solve these problems. And it's not just a matter of pure numbers of names to put in boxes in the organizational chart and filling those roles, but it's also about shifting demographics. So by 2025, Pew Research Center notes that about 2/3 of the global workforce is going to be made up of millennials and Gen Z. And what's interesting about this is that this is not just a numbers game, but it's also a changing expectations game. So the way that you enable these people to do the jobs, to do the tasks, and the way that they're performing those tasks is going to change. So all of this says there are some technological undercurrents that are changing the way the jobs need to be done. And again, in short, companies don't have the luxury of doing things the way that they've always been done. Finding change is imperative, and one of those mechanisms to drive to change is potentially moving to wearables. So let's talk through some of the key pieces of technology. So again, when we look at millennials, Gen Z, and functionally all workers, it's really critical that the technology itself is intuitive and makes sense. How do you get the information you need to do your task? How do you get the information that says where you need to go, what you need to pull, and why? And is that architecture something that's going to make logical sense to the user? How do you get these users up to speed quickly? One of the things that you'd be hard pressed to find one of your workers today that doesn't already have a smartphone in their pocket. Working with similar interfaces, similar types of technology can really reduce the amount of training time that it takes to get workers up and running, something where you can provide logical, intuitive guidance that will get them up and running in hours instead of weeks. So it really helps with the onboarding and the training, and with the access with high technology devices that are part of their job, you can do additional things like provide videos, provide training during downtime, and all of that in the device they're using as their primary workforce tool. It's also critical that the processes themselves be streamlined. How do you eliminate barriers to getting the job done? How do you eliminate steps that aren't required? How do you make things more efficient? Things like task interleaving, where you can simultaneously be doing cycle counting or flagging at the same time as you're doing picking. All of these things really help the workers understand their tasks and effectively be more productive at what they're already doing. And then it's also critical in terms of those worker expectations that this is a safe environment, that the workers have what they need to do the job and to do it efficiently and without distractions from the task at hand. And all of these types of things are things that the people that you're trying to hire, the people that you're trying to onboard and get deployed are going to be expecting. It's table stakes effectively. So when you start looking at potential for wearable solutions to accomplish some of these tasks, there are a lot of different ways to go about this. Voice solutions, many people have already deployed these technologies. They're reaching a state of relative maturity where the information comes in the headset as opposed to having to look at a physical device. And something that we're starting to see is bridge or hybrid, where some tasks are purely voice driven, which can be incredibly efficient, but others can be driven via the additional rich interface with a touch screen. We see devices that are mounted on the hand, on the arm, on the finger. We see heads-up display, smart glasses, augmented reality, virtual reality, headsets, kind of micro smartwatch devices. There's technologies deployed in sensors and smart clothing. There are mobile printers. So there's a whole ecosystem of wearable solutions here that some are more mature than others, some are better proven than others, but there are a lot of different things that can really drive these forward. And one thing that I think is noteworthy is we're talking about the timeliness of wearable solutions. There's a recent Deloitte study that found that 30 to 45% of warehouses are investing in wearable technology today. And that beyond that, another roughly third are planning to invest within the next 5 years. So we're really reaching this critical inflection point where it is making sense to the market. People are looking for these type of solutions, they understand them, and they're looking for these types of solutions to solve these problems. So let's take a look at specifically some of the benefits that wearables can yield in these typical types of workflows. So first, the typical wearable that's going to work well is going to be user-friendly. This means that it's easy to adopt. It means that the workers are not going to be resistant to a device that's bulky, heavy, uncomfortable, and difficult to navigate, right? It really needs to you need to consider, particularly with the competitive marketplace as it stands right now, where again, 3/4 of warehouse facilities are having a hard time finding workers. If you're making it more difficult or uncomfortable for them to perform their job, that's a detriment. A good wearable needs to satisfy that and truly be user-friendly. They need to help improve worker safety. One of the key things, it's kind of interesting as you look at the type of jobs that people are doing in a warehouse. You're lifting boxes, you're packing, you're putting things in totes, you're pushing carts. The typical picking, put away, material handling workflows in these facilities, not to mention applications like manufacturing, having your hands free to do your tasks while you have the information and the tools that are required to perform your task. All of these things help create this environment of worker safety. And of course, it's also critical the devices are designed with things like breakaway features and safety features to ensure that they can help improve worker safety and not counteract some of those factors. And then this is, I think, probably the driving factor that so many facilities are looking at now is finding a way to achieve higher productivity. This means, again, being able to do more cycles, more picks, more packs, more ships with the people that you have today. This means driving more throughput in the facilities that you have today. And again, all of these are really critical requirements. It means faster turnarounds. It means quicker shipping times. All of the things that your customers are demanding are really coming to play with these types of solutions. So again, these are some of the key things that that you're seeing as the benefits for wearable technology. But they don't stop there. Again, as we mentioned, getting up and running quicker, one of the key requirements, particularly if you're facing any issues with new hires or turnover, getting employees up and running with these intuitive, easy to use types of solutions are really critical. Minimizing downtime, ensuring that these devices are built to survive in the types of challenging environments where their constant impacts are hitting against racks, shelves, boxes. The wearables tend to get handled in a very different way as opposed to drops. That tends to be a lot more frequent and moderate velocity impacts against the environment. With the right design, these devices can satisfy these types of elements. And then finally, capturing more accurate data. So when you are not only seeing the information that you need all the time in real time, but also are able to capture the information on the transactions in real time, all of these elements really help satisfy the key requirements that users are looking for in deploying wearable technology. So effectively, wearables do a lot of things for these types of enterprises. So let's take a look at some of the areas where these or the environments where these wearable devices are typically deployed. So the first one that just jumps to mind is warehouse and e-commerce. Typical workflows, usually picking is going to be the highest percentage of labor in a facility, and deploying these types of wearable solutions that help people pick faster, more accurately, and with better ergonomics than traditional handheld solutions, that becomes really compelling. And then all of the other material handling, put away, pallet building type workflows, all of these can benefit from wearables as well. Transportation and logistics, you look at people that are moving a lot of packages at relatively high speeds, all of these things, vehicle loading, unloading, sorts, and even delivery, some of these elements where a wearable can ensure you've got both hands free to do your job and you're not distracted are significant benefits. Your hands are free, the displays are adequate to handle the task at hand, to communicate the information that's needed while still maintaining a compact form factor. All of these things are really key elements that help drive the value proposition for these environments. And there are a couple of others that perhaps may not spring quite as quickly to mind, but are also key areas where these compelling value propositions, the business values, really come home. Retail. This has been an interesting area, particularly, I think, as the pandemic really started to become a factor in the way people were living their lives. The buy online, pick up in store, or click and collect type of workflows really started to expand faster than they had been already. And these types of workflows where you're sharing the same environment as the users that are actually walking through the store, it's much more congested, it's much less organized, and there's a lot higher mixed density in the environment. all areas where having the information readily at hand and being able to scan on demand with both hands free provides that compelling value and helps drive the productivity and quick turnaround games that are required to satisfy the customer demand. And then in manufacturing, you look at tasks like assembly, the material handling, Kanban, and stock to production type of workflows. All of these, again, where you have the opportunity to free up the user, and now you no longer have one hand taken up with a mobile device or constantly picking up, setting it down. You model that out, and you can often see around a 6% productivity gain by converting a traditional handheld workflow to a wearable workflow. And that is enough to really be significant when you look at the amount of throughput that you get from a typical one-to-one worker to task deployment. So let's take a moment, and I think we've highlighted a lot of the key elements, the elements in the workforce and the environment today that are driving a need for improved productivity. Let's take a moment to talk through some of the solutions that Honeywell is bringing to the table to satisfy these types of requirements. So if you look at the portfolio, we have a few of the key elements here. It's all geared towards satisfying the things that we've been talking about: improving throughput, increasing that transaction velocity, hands-free efficiency, information where you need it, when you need it. Simplifying that user deployment, making sure that the ergonomics are right, so devices are comfortable, they're easy to adopt, and they satisfy user requirements to ensure that you get a smooth implementation. And then streamlined integration. The wearables, it's usually not a single piece solution. In many cases, you end up having an ecosystem of products, an ecosystem of components that bring together that full solution set. And this is really the portfolio of solutions is geared to do exactly that for simple, streamlined, and well-integrated deployments. So I think we've touched on some of these points already. Having the information where you need it, when you need it, always a glance away. The compelling value, once you have a device that's sitting right where you can see it when you're looking, it changes everything. I'm reaching for a box, I'm reaching for a pick. There are two different items here. Which one did I need? I don't have to go back to a cart where a tablet's mounted. I don't have to pull a device out of my pocket. It's right where I need it. Both hands are free to accomplish my tasks. I eliminate misplaced devices. One of the funny thematic stories that we frequently hear talking with users is just the loss of devices. And this could be in a number of things. We've heard users that are picking or doing put away, users that are shipping. The device goes in a tote, it goes in a box, it actually ships out the door, it goes in a trailer to another facility. Once you create an ergonomic, comfortable user interface that's on the user's arm, you're not picking up and setting down the device, and you can dramatically reduce the amount of misplaced devices that you have in your facility. And you're eliminating that wasted motion. So the devices that you're picking up and setting down, putting in a pocket, putting in a holster, setting down on a cart, setting down in a rack, all of that goes away once you have a comfortable ergonomic device like the CW45 that just sits on your arm paired with an 8675 ring scanner. So in terms of easing the user deployment, there's been a lot of talk around ergonomics, but much of the design work it's dramatically different when you do something like take a traditional handheld and say, all right, I need to find a way to mount the brick to the user's arm, versus if you start from the ground up designing devices for ergonomics. And some of the things that really change, rather than starting with a rectangle, you start with an arc. You start with something that's designed to complement the human form, as opposed to just finding a way to get something to fit. So the height off the user's arm, the wearable accessories that are designed to be easy to adjust, comfortable, all of these pieces around the worker-centered ergonomics really become critical to developing a solution that when you roll it out into your facilities, quickly makes sense to the workers and they're ready to adopt them. Flexible wearable configuration, convert from right hand to left hand, convert from cabled ring scanner to Bluetooth ring scanner, convert from keypad accessory to pure touch screen, depending on the environment that the user is operating. That flexibility goes a long way to ensure that you can tailor the solution to the application and the user requirements at hand to really satisfy those requirements. One of the next pieces is ensuring that the device has a sufficient display in order to carry the information that is required to do the task at hand. A lot of work went into this when we're talking about the CW45 you see in the picture here to ensure that it satisfies, it has a large enough display to really handle all of the challenges that you have. It needs to make sense. It needs to be easy to port existing applications over to the new display. It needs to be big enough that as you look at that workforce, that whether you have a relatively young worker with relatively fresh eyes, or whether you have somebody that traditionally wears reading glasses, all of these people are compensated if you have a large enough display to be able to handle the resolutions, to be able to handle the layouts, to really solve those problems while still maintaining a compact form factor. It goes into the ergonomics, it goes into the form factor, but one of the things that we tend to see in these types of environments, particularly around picking, it's a lot of small item picks, and you end up with a lot of relatively diminutive people doing this as opposed to full case movement or fork truck driving or so on, which means the device can only be so large before it ends up taking up a significant part of the user's forearm, and again, creating an ergonomic factor. So we've really tried to hit the sweet spot on those ergonomics and ensuring that things are lightweight and compact. And then again, in terms of satisfying user requirements, ensuring that we have choices, right? On one side of the spectrum, you have breathable solutions that allow moisture to wick out and evaporate. On the other side, you have non-absorbent elements or non-absorbent components that are easy to clean with approved cleaning agents. So one would can bias more toward if you're in an environment where you're looking to share devices, particularly critical if there's high turnover. The other more if you're looking at satisfying a different user requirement around breathability and comfort. So again, really try to cover the range of requirements to ensure that we're satisfying those user environments. And then the final piece of this is ensuring that it's easy to integrate the full solution set. So ensuring that the mobile computer is ready to pair with scanners and printers. Cases CW45, it's released on our standard Android 12 Mobility Edge platform for simple backend integration with the applications that are typically running in these environments now. We talked a little bit about kind of the crossover between voice solutions, where everything is voice input and voice directed activities in the warehouse. With the CW45, we now have the option to use voice guided work solutions to have that hybrid where you can receive the information in the ear and do hands-free, eyes up activities, but also have the ability to supplement that with information on the display on the user's arm. And of course, all of this is easy to monitor and manage these devices with traditional tool sets, whether it's Honeywell Operational Intelligence or an MDM that you would typically use to deploy one of these devices. So the solution set that Honeywell is bringing to the table is very much geared towards satisfying all of these requirements and making sure that it's easy for the users to deploy, it's driving those wearable productivity benefits, and it's easy to integrate with those backend systems and the other components of the solution to ensure that you're ready to deploy a solution that is really satisfying the end use requirements and driving those gains that you expected to see. So in short, improving throughput, key requirement for enterprises today as we're dealing with the current workforce restrictions, increased customer demands, and basically coming to the point where doing things the way that we've always done it is no longer a tenable solution. Easing user deployment with these wearables, making sure that users are going to find this easy to put on and wear all day, every day, and making sure that it's all ready to integrate as a full solution set with those solution components. Effectively, that's what we're looking to bring to the table to satisfy the key requirements that you're seeing in the market today. And with that, let me bring it back to Edwin so we can talk about how Barcodes Group can help be part of this full solution set that you're no doubt looking for.
Well, thanks, Glenn. That was awesome. So now that you've learned a little bit about Honeywell's offering, you may be asking yourself, how does Barcodes Group fit into everything? We are a Platinum Elite partner of Honeywell, and the different Barcodes Group entities that we offer design, deploy, and support services required to get the solutions implemented and maintained. So from a design and deployment standpoint, our professional services team can conduct on-site assessments to enable us to design a customized solution for you based on your environment. We then work with Honeywell to develop and integrate a full hardware and software solution to meet your needs and alleviate any pain points you may have. From a support standpoint, for all deployed hardware, we can offer our true support services, which can include a mix of help desk, configuration, staging, kitting, and other value-added services. We have a very experienced services staff to deliver troubleshooting and repair services. And we're also North America's largest supplier of labels, receipt paper, ribbon, print heads, and other consumables. Our goal is to partner with your business to get you up and running, but more importantly, keep you up and running with future-proof technologies like those you saw today. Next slide, please. So to learn more about wearables, please reach out to us if you have any questions. And right now, let's turn to some questions. Please type those in the Q&A box. And I have a few here, Glenn, maybe we can touch on in the last few minutes.
Okay.
So wearables, are they usually dedicated to a single worker or are they shared?
Oh, yeah. So it's interesting. In many cases, we've tried to drill down to find out those binaries. Is this common or is this common? And we've really found it's both. So particularly in situations where there's high turnover, the device is almost always shared. In many cases, the device itself is shared, and then the wearable components would be dedicated to a specific user. But for those instances where both the wearable and the device itself are shared, that's why we've developed solution sets like these non-absorbent components that we have an approved set of cleaning agents so they can be cleaned and sanitized in between workers. So really see a mix.
Nice. So what barriers do you usually see in deploying wearables in a current handheld application?
Okay, so one of the first things that we see, the big obvious difference is when you go from handheld to wearable, that the dimension changes. So it goes from a portrait to a landscape layout. And that's often one of the higher bars to achieve, is converting some of those elements over from one to the other. Now, one of the things that we have done with the CW45, it's a big enough screen that you can simply port it and run that portrait in landscape mode and have all the information and have it be big enough to still see and read. But we do also have some additional tool sets that that can simplify that. If you look at the Smart TE solution, we have a tool to do an automated conversion from portrait to landscape and simplify that. I'd say the one other big challenge is usually worker adoption. So if you provide the devices to the workers, if they find they're difficult to implement, if they find they're not comfortable, then you get a lot of resistance from employees to adopting the technology. So those are probably the two big challenges where it's really important to get those pieces right.
Makes sense. Let's do one more. Why would a customer want the keypad?
Okay, so it is kind of interesting because I think we're also at this inflection point. If you look at handheld units, some of them like the CK65, you have customers that are used to this, particularly if they're using gloves or they're doing a lot of data entry. You have kind of the newer deployments where you have a lot of people that are very accustomed to entering their data on their iPhone or Android. So it really comes down to, in some cases, user preference, but it can also depend on the amount of data entry. If you are doing data entry all the time, having physical hard keys where you can, it's very positive. You get that tactile feel, and you get the feel of your hand landing on the right keys. It becomes more intuitive and a bit higher productivity with a physical keypad. So those are some of the areas where I think the physical keypad is a benefit for those people that choose to select it.
Nice. One more came just in, Glenn. Could you talk about what OS is on the wearable?
Yeah. So this is on our Mobility Edge platform, the CW45. So this is running our standard Android 12 build, the same one that you see deployed on CT45XP or CT30XP, which makes it really simple, even our vehicle mount computers. So basically you have a single build that deploys across a range of form factors and makes it easy to deploy multiple form factors inside your enterprise. But since it is on our Mobility Edge platform, it's currently on Android 12. It is committed through Android 14, and we're expecting it to reach Android 15 as part of standard software releases. And then it'll be supported for another, I think, 7 or 8 years beyond that with security releases. So this is really geared to be a long lifespan device that can be deployed for a long time in a standard format that the market is very familiar with.
Great. Well, with that, we have reached the end of our webinar, and thanks to Glenn for sharing all your insights from your long career at Honeywell. I appreciate it. And thanks to all the attendees for making time today. If we can help, let us know, and have a great rest of the day. Thank you.